Zoe Johnson never imagined that one phone call would change her life. She was scrubbing the shiny marble floor in the grand lobby of the luxurious Grand Plaza Hotel when her cell phone buzzed. Normally, she would never answer during work hours. Manager Richards had made that rule very clear, especially for cleaning staff. But when Zoe saw the caller ID, her heart jumped. It was a university. After 6 failed attempts to win a scholarship for her master's degree in linguistics, this call could mean everything. She quickly slipped behind one of the tall marble columns, whispering to herself, "Just one moment," before picking up. "Zoe Johnson," she answered softly, trying not to attract attention from the hotel's wealthy guests moving through the lobby. The voice on the other end spoke flawless Dutch. It was Professor Van Ton from the University of Amsterdam. Without hesitation, Zoe replied in the same language, her pronunciation smooth and precise as they spoke about her application to the international program. She explained nervously that her motivation letter might not have arrived in time. That's when she realized the sudden silence around her. Looking up, she froze. Just a few feet away stood Richard Coleman, the billionaire owner of the hotel chain, watching her with open surprise. Beside him was Manager Richards, her expression hard with fury. "I have to go. I'll call back later," Zoe muttered quickly in Dutch before ending the call. "Johnson, my office. Now," Manager Richards snapped. The walk to the basement office felt endless. Zoe could feel her co-workers' eyes on her, some full of pity, others hiding smug satisfaction. At 29, she was the only black woman in the cleaning department with a college degree, something Richards loved to ignore. "You know the rules, Johnson. No phones during work hours, especially not in the lobby." Richards barked as soon as the office door closed. "And what language was that?" "French. Dutch." Zoe corrected instinctively and regretted it instantly. "I don't care if it was Martian," Richard shot back. "What matters is that Mr. Coleman just saw one of my cleaners ignoring her duties to chat on the phone." The injustice burned. White receptionists took personal calls all the time without punishment. Zoe knew exactly what this was. "You're assigned to convention center bathrooms for the next 3 months," Richards announced coldly. "There you can practice as many languages as you like, without embarrassing this hotel." Zoe's stomach sank. The convention center meant exhausting double shifts after corporate events, with no overtime. Richard's favorite punishment. "You should be grateful you're not fired," the manager added sharply. That night, Zoe cried quietly in her small apartment, staring at her framed linguistics degree and international certificates on the cracked wall. 6 years of cleaning hotel rooms, applying for jobs, sending out resumes, sitting through interviews that never led anywhere. But the next morning, she forced herself to arrive early, determined to stay professional no matter the injustice. That's when the front desk phone rang. "Zoe Johnson," called Jennifer, the head receptionist. "Human Resources wants you upstairs." "Right away." HR was on the top floor, next to the executive offices, an area cleaning staff almost never entered. Riding the elevator, Zoe felt invisible, surrounded by executives casually talking about million-dollar deals, as if she weren't even there. "Johnson," the HR director said firmly when she walked in. "Please have a seat." Zoe sat stiffly, bracing herself. She expected termination. Instead, the director continued, "Mr. Coleman has requested a meeting with you." Moments later, she was in the owner's office, bigger than her entire apartment. Richard Coleman, 45, known worldwide for rescuing bankrupt hotels and turning them into luxury brands, sat across from her, reading a file. "Dutch, French, Italian, and Mandarin. Correct?" he asked, glancing up. Zoe blinked, confused. "How did you—" "Your resume," Coleman interrupted. "I asked HR for it yesterday. Honors degree in linguistics from Georgetown. Fluent in 6 languages, 2 of them Asian. And yet, you've been cleaning my hotel for 6 years. Zoe's heart pounded. She had no idea this meeting was about to change everything. Because what no one in that hotel realized was that her phone call in Dutch had uncovered something far bigger. A hidden truth that would not only transform Zoe's future, but also exposed a system of discrimination that had buried extraordinary talent behind brooms and cleaning carts for years. If stories of workplace prejudice make you angry, this one will. A single phone call in a foreign language became the spark for a change that even a billionaire couldn't have predicted. For a few seconds, Richard Coleman's office was silent. Zoe stood frozen, trying to process what she had just heard. The billionaire hotel owner knew her, not just as the invisible woman in a cleaning uniform, but as a qualified professional. 6 years, Coleman repeated, shutting the file and crossing his arms. Why is a Georgetown-educated linguist scrubbing bathrooms instead of working in international relations? Zoe drew a steady breath. I sent 47 resumes to the hotel's international relations department. None were answered. I also applied for 12 internal transfers. Every single one was rejected. By who? Coleman pressed. Manager Richards and Mr. Whitmore, Director of Operations. Zoe replied. Coleman calmly wrote down their names. He found it interesting. Whitmore had often complained about not having enough multilingual staff, especially for Asian conferences. Coleman's eyes narrowed. He didn't tell Zoe this, but 3 months earlier he had secretly hired consultants to investigate why so many qualified employees of color were leaving his East Coast hotels. Zoe, I'll be direct, Coleman said. Tomorrow, a trade conference begins with Dutch and Chinese business leaders. I need someone fluent in both languages, who also understands cultural details. And you wanted to clean their rooms? Zoe asked, her voice edged with sarcasm. Coleman smiled faintly. No, I want you to serve as our international relations coordinator for the event. Temporary, for now. Salary, $5,000 a week. Starting today. Zoe nearly dropped her purse. That was more than 3 months of her current pay. Why me? There must be hundreds of other candidates, she asked, stunned. Because I heard you speaking Dutch like a native. Because you have the qualifications I need. And because I believe something is very wrong in my company, Coleman answered firmly. An hour later, Zoe stepped into the elevator with a brand new badge and full hotel access. On her way to HR to finalize paperwork, she ran straight into Manager Richards. The woman's face turned pale with shock. Johnson, what are you doing on this floor without a uniform? Richards snapped. Ms. Richards, Zoe replied calmly. I'm the International Relations Coordinator. Direct appointment from Mr. Coleman. Richards froze. That's impossible. You don't have the qualifications. Georgetown graduate. Fluent in 6 languages, including Mandarin and Dutch. Zoe cut in smoothly. My resume has been in the system for 6 years, along with 12 transfer requests you ignored. Richard stammered excuses, but Zoe walked past her with quiet confidence. In HR, she found unexpected support. A young recruitment analyst, also named Zoe, greeted her warmly. Finally, when I started 3 months ago, I saw your file and couldn't believe someone with your background was stuck in housekeeping. I tried raising it with Whitmore, but he shut me down immediately. That afternoon, while preparing for conference in the VIP room, Zoe uncovered something alarming. The event's documents contained sloppy Mandarin translations, phrases that could actually offend the Chinese executives. She quickly corrected them, rewriting the materials with cultural accuracy. How did you know they were wrong? Coleman asked, watching quietly from the doorway. The translation used casual terms that are considered disrespectful in corporate Chinese, Zoe explained. Whoever did this knows some basics, but not enough for formal negotiations. Coleman frowned. Whitmore swore he hired the best translators, at a very high cost. He hired someone without verifying credentials, Zoe said firmly, pointing out a critical mistranslation in a partnership proposal. The next day, the conference began. Zoe moved effortlessly between groups of Dutch and Chinese executives, switching languages smoothly and helping them build connections that normally would take weeks. During a break, Whitmore himself approached her. The same director who had ignored her for 6 years now forced a smile. Miss Johnson, I must say I'm impressed. Richards clearly underestimated you. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore, Zoe replied politely, though her words carried weight. Strange that my resume, which listed Mandarin fluency, was overlooked, especially since the hotel spent $50,000 on translations that were full of mistakes. Whitmore's smile froze. There must be some misunderstanding. I never saw. I have confirmation emails for every resume and transfer request I submitted. Zoe interrupted calmly, including ones where I flagged errors in translations for past Asian events. What Zoe didn't reveal was that HR analyst Zoe Williams had quietly given her access to the translation contracts. They led straight to Whitmore's niece, who had no real Mandarin expertise but was charging top rates. Every previous translation carried similar errors that could have cost millions in lost deals. On the third day of the conference, something remarkable happened. A Dutch businessman stopped mid-conversation, staring at Zoe in surprise. "Wait, aren't you the student who published that brilliant article on linguistic variation in International Business? In the Journal of Applied Linguistics?" Zoe blinked, then nodded. "I knew it," he exclaimed. "I've cited your work at 2 conferences." The Dutch businessman called his colleagues over to meet Zoe, praising her work. From a distance, Coleman observed closely, while Whitmore grew visibly uneasy. What Whitmore didn't realize was that behind Zoe's calm smile, she was piecing together something far bigger than a few translation errors. She was uncovering a whole system of discrimination and corruption, one that had hidden talents like hers while funneling money into inflated contracts for unqualified insiders. No one at the Grand Plaza Hotel knew it yet, but the cleaning lady who answered a call in Dutch was not there by chance. Her sudden transfer was the beginning of a plan that would not just change her life, but expose a culture of injustice affecting dozens of employees. The real question was no longer if Zoe could prove it, but just how explosive the truth would be once revealed. By the 4th day of the conference, the hotel buzzed with excitement. Thanks to Zoe, new deals and contracts had already exceeded expectations. But as she crossed the lobby, she noticed something troubling. Whitmore was escorting a young, nervous woman into the executive elevator. "Miss Whitmore, your Mandarin is fine," he said coldly. "No need to worry." The last name caught Zoe's attention instantly. The woman carried a folder marked Final Translation, Master Contract. A quick glance confirmed Zoe's fears. The same serious mistakes appeared again in the text. "Mr. Coleman needs to see this," Zoe thought, hurrying to his office. Coleman looked up from his desk as she entered without knocking. "Zoe, what is it?" "Whitmore is replacing my accurate translations with his niece's flawed work," she explained, showing him screenshots. "And I can prove this has been happening for years." Coleman stood up sharply. "Are you certain?" "I've documented everything," Zoe said firmly. "Overpayments to her company, 3 times above market rates, while qualified employees like me were blocked from advancement." Just then, Zoe Williams from HR rushed in with a folder. "Mr. Coleman, I found something urgent," she said, handing it over. 5 years of hiring records. The same pattern qualified non-white candidates consistently rejected, especially women. Coleman's expression hardened as he flipped through the pages. The outside investigation had hinted at problems, but this was undeniable proof of systemic discrimination. At that moment, Whitmore barged in without knocking. "Richard, the Dutch are ready to sign, but they've noticed inconsistencies in the documents. Johnson must have made a mistake." The silence that followed was icy. Coleman calmly closed the office door and turned back to him. "Thomas," he said slowly, "I'm looking at $50,000 invoices for poor translations while employees with advanced degrees are cleaning bathrooms. Care to explain?" Whitmore paled. I don't know what you're talking about. We hired the best." "Your niece," Coleman cut him off. "No professional Mandarin training. Fake certification." Zoe placed a printed email on the desk. "I confirmed with Peking University. They never certified Ashley Whitmore." Whitmore shot Zoe a look filled with rage. "You're nothing. A cleaning lady pretending she belongs in the boardroom." "Correction," Zoe replied evenly. "PhD in Applied Linguistics from Georgetown. 6 international publications. All in your HR files. For years." Coleman stepped in. "I've called an emergency board meeting. In 30 minutes. I expect your resignation on my desk." Whitmore laughed nervously. You can't be serious over this. Choose your next words very carefully, Coleman warned. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium was packed with staff, managers, and directors. In the front row sat the Dutch and Chinese executives, watching curiously. Richards, the cleaning manager, looked pale and confused among the others. Coleman took the stage, Zoe by his side. His voice was steady but grave. Today, we uncovered a system of nepotism and discrimination that has cost this company millions. For years, managers like Thomas Whitmore and Sarah Richards have enforced unofficial policies that block talented employees, while overpaying family-run companies for substandard work. Behind him, a presentation appeared showing charts, employee qualifications compared with their positions, rejection statistics by race and gender, and evidence of overpriced contracts tied to family connections. Ms. Johnson, Coleman continued, gesturing to Zoe, whom some of you only knew as a cleaner, prevented a major disaster this week. By correcting flawed translations, she saved us from losing millions in international agreements. The Asian delegates nodded in agreement, some even clapping softly. As of today, Coleman declared, Thomas Whitmore is terminated for cause. Sarah Richards is suspended while we complete our inquiry. And effective immediately, we are launching a full audit of all hiring and promotions over the last 5 years. Gasps echoed across the auditorium. Richards lowered her head, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Finally, Coleman allowed himself a faint smile. And I am proud to announce that Dr. Zoe Johnson will be our new Global Director of Internal Communications, overseeing all multilingual operations. The room broke into applause, some hesitant, many sincere. From the back, members of the cleaning staff clapped the loudest, some with tears streaming down their faces. As Zoe stepped down, she saw Whitmore being escorted out by security. His face twisted in anger. As he passed her, he hissed, "You won't last a month." Zoe only smiled. In the pocket of her new blazer rested a recording device, filled with every threat and racist remark Whitmore had made in the past few days while scrambling to cover his tracks. That night, sitting in her new office with a breathtaking view of the city, Zoe finally let the tears flow. They weren't tears of sadness, but of release. 6 years of being dismissed. 6 years we lost your resume and you're not the right cultural fit. She picked up the phone and dialed home. When her mother answered, Zoe's voice broke. "I did it, Mom," she whispered. No one at the Grand Plaza Hotel could have guessed that the real change was only beginning. While some leaders were still shocked at seeing their old privileges collapse, others were slowly realizing the truth. Real talent, when given a chance, doesn't just correct past wrongs. It reshapes the future. The fall of Whitmore and his unfair system was only the opening chapter of a much bigger transformation that would shake not just his hotel, but the entire American hotel industry. And it all started with one simple phone call in Dutch. 6 months had passed since the day Zoe answered that call in the hotel lobby. What had once looked like a single act of justice had turned into a quiet revolution across the industry. From her new office on the 32nd floor, Zoe now looked out over Manhattan. A small plaque on her oak door read, Dr. Zoe Johnson, Vice President of Diversity and International Relations. Her salary was 5 figures each month, but the true power went far beyond money or title. A restructuring committee was waiting for her decisions, and all regional managers were already on the conference line. Dr. Johnson, announced Zoe, now her executive assistant and close friend, everyone is ready. Zoe nodded, took a deep breath, and walked into the conference room where Richard Coleman and the board directors waited. This was the final presentation of her Invisible Talents program, a personal project she had created to find and promote skilled employees who had been ignored for years. The results of the pilot program have been better than we ever imagined, Zoe began, showing the numbers on screen. In just 6 months, we found 147 employees with skills in languages, finance, management, and technology, working far below their abilities. 83% of them were Black, Latino, or from other minority groups. Coleman nodded with approval. This program had been his first demand after Zoe's promotion. Not just fixing her case, but changing the entire system. What's even more impressive, Zoe continued, is the financial impact. Translation outsourcing costs have dropped 78%. International guest satisfaction is up 42%. Our diversity ratings are now the best in industry, and all of this was achieved by using the talent already on our payroll. Meanwhile, in a small hotel in California, Sarah Richards watched the broadcast. After an investigation, she had avoided being fired only by accepting a demotion and transfer. Now she managed laundry at a second-rate property, a daily reminder of her past prejudice and arrogance. Zoe then explained the next step. The program will expand to include a mentoring system. Every promoted employee will commit to guiding others with potential. Not everyone was present. Thomas Whitmore, once powerful, was gone. After his firing, no luxury hotel would hire him. Allegations of discrimination and theft had destroyed his reputation. Rumor said he was now working as a night manager in a cheap roadside motel in Arizona. His niece Ashley had been forced to return her unearned payments, complete an ethics program, and, ironically, was now studying Mandarin with a scholarship from the Coleman Foundation for Inclusive Language Education. At the close of her presentation, Zoe turned to the camera broadcasting across the chain. She paused, letting silence hold the moment. "I want to share something personal," she said softly. "When I was young, my mother worked as a maid in a hotel like this. She had a college degree, but never got the chance to use it. She told me, 'Zoe, no matter how much they try to make you feel invisible, your worth doesn't depend on their recognition.' My mother died believing some doors would never open for people like us. She never lived to see this day, to see her sacrifice finally matter." Several executives in the room, many newly promoted to the program, wiped away tears. "The true power of a company," Zoe continued, "is not how much money it makes, but the potential it unlocks. For decades, this industry buried brilliant talent under service uniforms, assuming that people of certain colors, accents, or background belonged only in invisible roles." Coleman stood and applauded, soon joined by the whole room and hundreds of employees watching remotely. Later that day, Zoe received an envelope in her office. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam and a letter from a University of Applied Linguistics offering her a visiting professor position. Professor Vanton, the man behind that Dutch phone call 6 months ago, had followed her incredible rise. Zoe smiled, looking out the window at the city. Funny, she thought. If Richards had only given me a warning that day, I might still be cleaning the same rooms with my degree gathering dust. The very next day, Zoe launched a scholarship fund for hotel workers and their children, partly paid from her new salary. The first recipient was the daughter of her former cleaning colleague, who dreamed of studying hotel management. What began with a phone call in Dutch had now spread far beyond one hotel, far beyond one industry. The message was clear. Talent exists everywhere. The real problem is lack of opportunity and recognition. True justice isn't just about punishing discrimination. It's about rebuilding systems so prejudice has nowhere left to hide. For Zoe, the sweetest victory wasn't watching her old enemies fall. It was seeing hundreds of people like her finally rise. If this story touched you, leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of people who turn injustice into real change. Because the greatest lesson Zoe leaves us with is this. True greatness isn't only about breaking barriers yourself, but making sure the doors stay open for everyone who comes after.